Quick 60, hope you're having a great summer. Little summer special all-star edition. Normally in the school year, what I'm about to say would never happen. Raffy, come on up to the big boy set, buddy. You've earned it. This is like summer school, so obviously you've been in this type of situation a lot in your life.
Oh, yeah, of course.
You have already gone heavy summer mode. The fedora, the sunglasses.
I'm on vacation.
Of all the seasons we do,
yeah,
I get a sense that you enjoy lacrosse the most.
A lot of people say that. I think I'm the closest with all the lacrosse coaches, so it's definitely what I'm most comfortable in, but I like them all when I'm into it.
You have a big part in this show because earlier this year, Raph and Tracy Weiner did a great job with the girls All-Stars. That'll be coming by in about 18 minutes, but we begin this All-Star special with a look back at this year's boys' best players in the Tri-State.
1, 2, 3, hurry up! The captain winds, fires, and scores! You can't do it any better! Christian Mazon! Bruckner has broken through!
Let's get it, boy!
Goddarding! Bombs away by the captain bound for Duke! Rotitz did it! The two-time All-American delivers!
Oh, baby!
Oh, Nemerov! Oh, Danny boy!
Hey, sticks up, D, sticks up.
Batten down the hatches.
Oh, yeah! Let's go!
Sounds like a kid with a football name, Jack Lambert, John Jay, and you have loved him since we've been doing these shows.
I've been watching Jack Lambert since his youth days, Quickie, and speed, toughness, and a multi-sport athlete. Another guy, he plays football.
Okay, Clark, we'll say it every year. This first and second team is harder to make than becoming an All-American, correct?
It's not even close. I mean, Section 1 has 10 All-Americans. The whole Tri-State would probably have upwards near 50. I mean, we're talking the first team All-Tri-State. Every single one of these kids is instant impact, is a game changer, took their team from one place to another, and enjoyed great success from an individual standpoint. And a team standpoint. I'd put these kids against anyone. I mean, we talked throughout the week, Quick, and I said, the day I can't stand behind one of these kids is when I'm out. And I could stand behind each and every one of them.
All right, well, here we go. Could you stand in a goal? I doubt it. So you probably would have been a first-team attacker, midi. You never would have had the guts to get in a goal.
Never. I put my little brother in there. That's
yeah,
right.
Exactly. But you know who is? Danny Nemerov. First team, Ward Melville. Great story because he was kind of an unknown and burst onto the scene.
Who was Danny Nemerov in 2012?
Right.
I had no clue. Here was a kid that was not even in our top 6 goalies when I highlighted it in the midseason. I watched tape on this kid. I saw him in person. He was incredible. You talk about Bruckner, you talk about Mazzone, you talk about Bucaro. This team never let up double digits. Garden City, one of the top teams in the country, 3 goals. Danny Nemerov is everything that's good about high school lacrosse because in an era where recruiting has changed and you have to be on the radar so early, Danny Nemerov, I talked to him today actually. He applied on his own to Cornell. He's going in as a preferred walk-on. He hasn't even really talked to the coaching staff too much. You will hear about this kid again. I guarantee it.
Sounds like a young man by the name of Brendan Fowler who went down to Duke as a walk-on and, oh, by the way, was the MVP of this year's national championship game. Here's what I like about the defense, okay? This guy that we just talked about, Fowler, was a football player. All 3 of your polls, common denominator, football guys. Eddie Blatz, Garden City.
Lunch pail, rangy type kid. Great feat for Blatz. He goes down to Georgetown. He'll play for Kevin Warren, who's a defensive specialist, and he's changing the culture there. They've only been there for 2 years now, this staff. I think Eddie Blatz, in terms of his range, his ability to shut down attackmen from the defense, he doesn't do it with tremendous flash, but he blankets the opposition. Blatz, 2-year starter for a team that's won 2 state titles, guarding the #1 player on the opposing team. Come on now.
Will Reynolds has an altar boy look about him, but he is a mean dude, violent with the stick.
He's big, he's rangy like Blatz, and he has tremendous stick skills. I mean, when you watch this kid play, he's been college ready for the last 2 years. It's actually a joke watching Will Reynolds play because physically, he should be at Princeton already. He shuts down attackmen with his strength. His feet are incredible, and I love that he's a lefty, too, because most right-handed attackmen are playing into Reynolds' strength, and that's not a good thing for them.
Maryland is getting an all-out stud in Chaminade's Timmy Muller.
Chaminade has 3 starting defenders who are all going Division I, but Timmy Muller, you watch him guarding Nick Mariano right there. Nick Mariano is an All-American attackman, one of the top scorers in Yorktown history from a goal standpoint. Timmy Muller beat Mariano up pretty good, but watch his feet and his toughness. A lot of attention goes to the Dunn kid, well-deserved, who's going to Duke, but he's the top defender on Chaminade.
Very, very good defender. I was teasing Jack Bruckner. I said, Jack, when he was leaving here before, I said, I wonder if you're going to make the first team. I think it was a given that he was going to make this team. He's one of those guys, and again, I'm a baseball guy, but this is the type of guy that makes me love the sport of lacrosse.
Me too. You watch Jack Bruckner or you meet Jack Bruckner, you say, wow, that's a pretty laid-back dude. Not when he plays lacrosse. This kid's engine doesn't stop. We watched him in the state semifinal game. He was the best player on the field, and number 2 wasn't even close. I mean, Jack Bruckner is college Division I midfield ready right now. I love his vision, his ability to shoot on the run. He has a flair for the dramatic. If Timmy Rotans, who is one of the greatest players in Long Island, wasn't garnering so much attention, people would be talking about Jack Bruckner as a legend on Long Island. He's really that good.
If Duke plays Syracuse next year in a rematch, Bruckner will be up against JT Forkin.
This kid is the real deal. He's a goal scorer, tremendous toughness. He plays a different style of lacrosse than a guy like Bruckner. Bruckner does it with great stride. I think JT Forkin plays the midfield position almost like a hockey player. I think this kid can play attack. He's good inside. He's great around goal line extended. And he has a nose for the cage, maybe more than any goal-scoring middie in the entire tri-state.
We're going to go with 4 middies, and here's when your team gets interesting because you don't go the way of these Under Armour All-American teams. Brian Prestro, very deserving of first team.
Very deserving of first team, but very deserving to be considered one of the top middies in the entire nation. Have you ever heard of Roy Colsey?
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the greatest midfielders of all time. He has the most goals in Yorktown history in a single season for a midfielder, and this is a pretty tradition-rich town in terms of lacrosse. Brian Prestro has the 2nd most goals for a midfielder in Yorktown history. He's lightning fast. He stretches the defense with an outside shot. He'll start at Stony Brook without question day 1.
Nice. Christian Mazzone.
You know, I labored about this, and finally I said to myself, why am I going to hurt Christian Mazzone because he plays with Jack Bruckner?
Good job, Clark.
The bottom line is this. If you're a top player, I don't care if all 10 were from Ward Melville. Ward Melville was the best team in the tri-state and crushed every single team that stepped in their way, and this guy was their pit bull. Junkyard dog mentality, all over ground balls, great toughness, a lot like Forkin in terms of, if I'm going to the goal, you're not stopping me. And Brian Brecht, who's a great coach at Rutgers, found himself not only an outstanding midfielder, but a guy he can pattern his team in terms of their mental edge around. I think Mazzone, his attitude on the field, seems like a reserved kid here, not when the ball's on the ground. That kid is the real deal.
So I think it's great for Brecht because you gotta, at Rutgers, they should be getting Long Island guys. You can't win national championships without kids from Long Island.
Without question. And Brecht, you know, he's one of the great young recruiters. If you watch Brecht in the summer, and you're on that summer circuit, he's everywhere. This guy lives and drinks and eats lacrosse, and he's going to find a guy like Mazzone, and he's going to be able to pattern the mental approach of that Rutgers lacrosse team. You know, what do they call it in Rutgers football? Keep chopping?
Yeah.
This guy's he's chopping already.
Great.
He's chopping.
And it's a good thing Rutgers did the right thing with this guy, too, with all the craziness going on down there. He's the head coach, and he should be because he's a very good hard worker. Long stick midi, not even close.
No.
Jack Lambert,
yeah.
stud.
Jack
Look
Lambert
at this guy.
Can play extra man. He's a game changer. Timmy Scher's head coach, when they were tied against Yorktown last year in the section championship, in overtime, called a timeout and started the ball with Jack Lambert. On the offense with a long pole. I've said it many times, but I'm going to say it again for any new viewer. Watch Syracuse in 2008 and 2009 when they won a national championship. They had a guy named Joel White. He reminds me so much of Joel White. I spoke to his college coach, Joe Bresci, about a week ago. I said, Jack Lambert will be on the field for you right away because you cannot negate what he can do in the middle of the field because you don't have anyone else that can do that.
Clark, they need to, in the sport of lacrosse, start in the newspapers and the internet putting face-offs won because it is such a major part of the game. Teddy Otten's second team a year ago from Wilton, first team this year. He closed the season as well as anybody at the face-off spot.
There are so many great face-off players in the tri-state, but Teddy Otten's, to me, if you take Teddy Otten's off the Wilton team, I'm sorry, in all due respect to that team, they don't have a chance at winning the state championship in Connecticut. No way. And they don't have those upset wins. Teddy Otten's, make it, take it. And you know what I love about this kid? He was a Fogo guy, but now he's starting really to understand the offensive game, and he needs to do that in college because there's so much pressure on those Fogos. They attack them, they double, they triple them. They need sticks. They need to start transition. Teddy Otten's is feeling that. His quickness and the way that he approaches the face-off play, he's the best.
The dude had double-digit goals this year for Weissman. All right, let's go to the attack. No surprise, three-time All-American, Timmy Rotanes.
Third all-time in Long Island history in points. Are you kidding me? I mean, this kid is just unbelievable. His versatility screams when he plays the game. He plays with a long pole on man down. He plays the attack position. He played a ton of midfield against Bronxville. And you know what I like about him best? His vision. He is an incredible passer. He starts at Maryland. I will guarantee you Tim Rotan starts next year for the Terps. They're going to contend for a national title, and they're going to build an offense around this kid because of his ability to separate from the defense, get teammates involved, and make plays on his own. Tim Rotans is a stud.
Gutterding, second team a year ago, had a great year in the national championship season. What he did this year was even better. We'll prep next year, Danowski in 2.
I look at Gutterding and his path to success. When I saw him as a sophomore, I didn't think that kid understood the game. And last year, he was a great compliment to Devin Dwyer. Well, guess what? They gave the keys to the offense to Justin Gutterding, and he delivered. This kid started playing selfless lacrosse. What about in that Niski game? What do you have, 2 goals and 4 assists? If there were hockey assists, he probably would have 6 or 7. He understands the game, and he reached stud level. No-brainer first-teamer.
No question. And the final first-teamer, Karen Mullins, Jr., Islip High School.
Okay, start the hate mail. I get it. Who's Kieran Mullins? He plays for Islip. Well, guess what, people? I don't care.
The Clark is mad.
Because I've watched Kieran Mullins in the summertime. I've watched and followed him this season. He was second in Long Island in overall points to only Tim Rotans. He had over 60 assists for a mediocre team. You know what that tells me? A kid who has 60-plus assists for a team that's not that good, you're getting teammates involved, and you embody the selfless approach to the attack position. Kieran Mullins is going to go to Army, and you will hear about him just like you heard about John Glessner at Army right now, who's the Patriot League Player of the Year, or 2 years ago, first-team All-American in Jeremy Baltus. You know, he's going to go there, and he will make everyone around him better for Coach Joe Alberici. I just think this kid's a stud. I watched a lot of Kieran Mullins last summer, and following him this year, I'm so proud of his accomplishments as well, and I'd stack him up against any of those other guys.
In 15 seconds, before we bring out this year's MVP, how good is our second team?
Second team is incredible. Just like the first team. I could probably have 4 or 5 teams, but the second team, splitting hairs in some of those situations because these guys are all instant impact and fabulous players who changed their team's success this year, too. So, you know, if you make that second team, you're going to be heard about in college lacrosse. I mean, the tri-state is that rich, and when you think about Long Island and Connecticut and Westchester and Jersey, this is the mecca of lacrosse. So if you make second team, your head should be high.
Here's a tease.
Here's Lukovic now turning, firing, and a goal! Winding and firing is Bucaro. Ah, the 10th grader put a little giddy up on that one. Inside, oh, what a save by Danny Fowler. Point blank.
Mariano, oh, rapid fire. Nick Mariano.
Dylan Malloy, the captain. Turns and fires it home. Malloy's done it again.
All right, that's a tease. You can see the complete second team right after this show, both the boys and the girls, at 9:30. Clark's second team. Go to MSGVarsity.com. KarkReport.com, where Kark's phone number will be posted. Do people still use phones?
Open, the Kark Report is back, and you bring this horrible weather. It won't stop, Kark.
The winter that won't end, Quickie. I mean, is this lacrosse in the spring, lacrosse in the winter? I mean, the colleges have been feeling it too. I mean, a lot of these teams haven't had the full fields. I mean, from the high school standpoint, I think these kids are kind of getting into preseason a little bit easier than some of these college teams who just were really crippled by this winter.
Well, you were spoiled when you went from Yorktown to Syracuse. You played in the dome and everything
Basketball
like
occupied the dome, though. We were out in Manley Fieldhouse a lot of time. John Desko, he can't stop complaining about the lack of full field. I mean, they're playing in the Manley Fieldhouse now, which is about 80 yards turf, so they have that opportunity. But Jim Boeheim, man, he runs the show up there. Basketball reigns supreme, so it's tough to get the dome.
Did you see the 30 for 30 on the history of the Big East?
I did. With
incredible,
Boeheim,
right?
and unbelievable. Thompson and the whole rivalries and everything. I mean, that stuff will never be replicated. Sad.
Well, give me the best college lacrosse rivalry. Is there one that defines all of college lacrosse?
I think one that's really withstood the test of time is Hopkins-Syracuse. And I say that because a lot of people like Syracuse-Virginia or Johns Hopkins, Maryland. But no other rivalry do you have programs that combine for 20 national titles with Hopkins and Syracuse that have played each other multiple times on the big stage, and they've done it for the last 30 years. So I think, to me, it's a no-brainer. You don't get that venomous hatred. There's actually a mutual respect when it comes to Hopkins and Syracuse. But make no mistake about it, those are the two titans in terms of the last 30 years.
We're taping this at Wilton High School, and when you were at Yorktown, you would come here and play legendary Guy Whitten, the Hall of Fame head coach from Wilton High School. Is it possible for two programs in high school lacrosse to be in different states and have an intense rivalry?
You know, back in the day, Quickie, that's a great question because we played Wilton, we played New Canaan and Darien. And New Canaan and Darien weren't at the level of Wilton. Wilton with Whitten was just a giant. And I remember they were so physically gifted, too, and big, strong guys. So when we came to Wilton every year, it was a massive rivalry. I mean, I'm happy and proud to say that we never lost to them on the varsity level, but my older brother did and my younger brother did, so I'm okay.
You have a great competition with your brothers. The Carcateras love to stick it to each other. When we come here, we get ready, we see Johnny Weissman out there, one of my favorite coaches in the Tri-State. He played for Whitten. He kind of epitomizes what kind of that burly, tough, in-your-face type of guy. And this school benefited from that a year ago because we wrote them off. They go on that magical run, win the state title. Now, I know we're about to break down all the players, but is there a team out there when you talk to people that you're hearing, ooh, this could be the year?
You know, there's so much parity, and even last year at this time, no one really even felt that Ward Melville would be as good as they really were. I mean, they're seniors with guys like Bruckner and Nemerov. They really just took the bull by the horns from a leadership standpoint. Everyone thought Chaminade on paper was this unbeatable type team, and Ward Melville became the powerhouse, not only in the Tri-State, but nationally. I think the Tri-State right now, from a power type team, might be a little bit down, but that's actually a good thing because I think there's a tremendous amount of parity. You're going to get great play, obviously, in Long Island. Connecticut, you have guys like Weissman leading Wilton. They'll always be in the mix with the other powers, and don't sleep on Colsey in Ridgefield, too, in Connecticut. He said he has a great team, and he's excited about his preseason and getting things going. And then you go into Jersey. I mean, is this the year Don Bosco takes the next step? Was last year a fluke for Del Barton where they didn't close things out? I mean, so many questions, but the beauty of high school sports, like sports in general, Quickie, is they'll all be answered.
No, they will, and it sounds like you're ready to go already. And you mentioned Chaminade, you mentioned Ward Melville, so we know this. Ward Melville ain't going unbeaten this year.
No.
There will be no #1 finish in America. They lost their first game of the year to Chaminade. And of course, Ward Melville #1 in America, #1 in our Tri-State poll at the end of last year. Our #2 team, Garden City. Steve Fennell's guys opened the year losing to Smithtown West. This could be the year for Smithtown West because as I looked at all your guys, a couple of dudes from Smithtown West.
Smithtown West is loaded, and it's really not a surprise to me because the way that program has kind of developed over the last 10 years, I mean, they're just creating stud lacrosse players, and it's not stopping. I mean, at the youth level, it's just a huge type of lacrosse town now, and giants in the sport, guys like Rob Pinnell from the Smithtowns and James Pinnell. And now you have culture of young kids wanting to be the next star in a program and a high school in Smithtown West that's embracing this lacrosse craze.
I got to ask you this. I was a baseball player, and I knew on a day like this, if the ball was popped up, you may go, how much does wind play a factor in the game of lacrosse?
Look at my hair. If my hair is moving, wind's playing a factor. I put more product in my hair than anyone. But I think it's a huge factor. People don't really put wind as a game changer in the sport of lacrosse, but from a dodging standpoint, a passing standpoint, it's a lot like football. I mean, you talk to college football coaches, wind is the biggest enemy for any type of offense, and it's the same thing in the sport of lacrosse. I mean, that lacrosse ball doesn't weigh a ton. It surely hurts when it hits you in weather like this, but I think wind is a tremendous factor.
Well, this is about the time every year, and I think this is the 6th year that we've done this together with the Kark Report, and we always run a disclaimer that just because you don't mention a young man here right now in the preseason report doesn't mean that young man can't come to the top. Nemiroff last year, we've had it not even mentioned in the preseason, was your Tri-State goalie of the year. And this is what I think is so special about your team. Unlike other sports, where if you play great in the summer, you're automatically going to be on the postseason team. You have never done that.
No, I mean, look, Nemiroff last year from Ward Melville, from a goalie standpoint, was he the most talented goalie in the Tri-State? Absolutely not. Did he have the most defining moment and capture his team in terms of being a leader and winning a state title and playing huge down the stretch? It's just not like it was handed to him. That's the beauty of this. I want to see leadership. I want to see a kid who perseveres and is able to get through those type of obstacles. It's not all about talent. It's what you do for your team. This is a team sport. And if you can catapult your team from good to great, that's the difference. And you know, let's take a step back. When you look at the preseason, I look at all this, and I've told you in the past this. It's like a nice meal where you have your appetizer, your main course, and your dessert. At the end of the day, when dessert is served and done, that's when you want to be on the team. This is just an appetizer, this preseason stuff. And we'll document the season, and anyone who's lighting it up, you're not going to go unnoticed. No. I mean, do we miss some kids here and there? Of course, but that's the nature of the beast. There's too many great players out there. But more times than not, if you've been able to catapult your team from good to great, you will be recognized.
I remember, I guess it was 4 years ago now, and we got to the postseason, and you said to me, hey, there's a kid at Connecticut that nobody knows about, but I'm going to put him on our first team, McCardle. And he has done wonderful things since that moment.
He broke St. John's record in terms of overall points. He'll be potentially a first-team All-American. He was the Big East Offensive Player of the Year last year, and that's when Syracuse and Notre Dame were in the conference. He could possibly be a Tewaaraton finalist, which is given to the top 5 players in the country. There's something I saw about this kid, and people laughed at me too. He developed late. He was a little skinny. He had bigger feet, didn't move as well. You watch this kid now, man. He is unbelievable. He's the best quarterback outside of maybe Lyle Thompson in Albany, who's a once-in-a-generation type player in the country.
Partner, you know why I asked you that question?
Why?
Because last year you said to me, listen, I'm going to name this kid Kieran Mullins from Islip to the postseason first team, and people are going to be like, what are you doing? Nobody's saying that anymore.
No, and you look at what he did last year, Quickie. He was second on Long Island in points. He led Long Island in assists. So from a passing standpoint, he's playing on a team of average lacrosse players. And if he's distributing the ball at that level and getting teammates involved and having assist totals like that, I mean, that just tells you he's a selfless lacrosse player. He's a quarterback player. He's also kind of a hybrid. He's played attack, he's played midfield, and he dominates. He's going to West Point. Joe Alberici, who's the coach there, has developed great offensive players. John Glessner, Patriot League Player of the Year. Garrett Thules on Team USA. Jeremy Boltus was the first-team All-American. I expect Kieran Mullins to be at that level by the time he leaves West Point.
And, buddy, I tell you what, he must have used your first-team selection as a nice impetus. Started the season with 4 goals and 3 assists against Connecticut, so there you go.
There you go.
Ian Kirby. Now, we've talked about teams that could come, and I don't want to say from out of nowhere, but it is time for Massapequa to take that next step. Nassau County titles are fine. Now this year it's about winning Long Island titles and state titles. Ian Kirby, one of many, many talented players for the Chiefs.
You know, Kirby is an exceptional left-handed finisher. You know, you got guys like Mullins that do a little bit of everything. I think Kirby has understood what his craft is, that's finishing the ball from the left-hand side. He's going off to Towson. He was an early commit there. I think his game is actually elevated even more so over the last year, too, because he's around great playmakers on that Massapequa offense, guys like Burge at the midfield who are great passers. I think Kirby's a fantastic finisher. The best lefty finisher on Long Island with Alex Kincannon, you can argue with those two.
The Keenan name is big at Smithtown West. Ryan now, he'll head to Penn State next year, and the way his season started, he's another one of those guys who's got that chip on his shoulder saying, I'm going out a winner. You can just feel it.
Yeah, and you know, with Keenan, this is finally his team. I mean, he played behind guys like James Pinnell, and you know, his brother was on the team with him when he was a youngster, and I think Keenan understands that for this team to be great, he has to be the quarterback. And from an assist standpoint, he's as fine a passer as there is in the Tri-State. He understands the game. He's a coach's son. You watch him on tape, and his IQ is off the charts. That's what I like about him. And if you're going to be the best team in the country, potentially, which people are throwing Smithtown West out there with some of the teams in Maryland, you need that guy to be your guy, your quarterback, like Jack Bruckner was, I thought, from the midfield for Ward Melville last year.
Bruckner's my man. Sent me a beautiful note at Christmas thanking us for everything that we've done. Molinari has some studs on that coaching staff this year. Keenan's back, helping out, the school he used to coach at, and Tommy Rotan.
Tommy Rotan.
I mean, that whole crazy situation at Short Waiting River,
crazy.
He's now an assistant.
Well, they'll reap the benefits from that. I told Tommy, too, I hope he gets a chance to watch his kid play at Maryland over the next few years, because, you know, that's some of the greatest times and experiences you can have, I think, as a father. I look back at my time at Syracuse and having my dad at all the games. I said, selfishly, go down to College Park.
Timmy had just an unbelievable career. Rotan's, he was our Tri-State Player of the Year last year, the Clark Player of the Year. Early reports out of Maryland. How's he doing?
He's doing great. You know, he was a little nicked up early in the season. He didn't get on the field because of injury, but he's a mainstay now. You know, Maryland had the #1 recruiting class in the nation. It's crazy to think, but Timmy Rotan's was just one of them. I mean, he wasn't even like their headliner. They had Matt Rambo, Connor Cannizzaro, and Colin Heacock, all these great freshmen. I call them the Baby Terps, and they're going to be monsters in college lacrosse over the next few years. But I think Rotan's has found his niche. He's starting games now, which is incredible for a team that was ranked #1 in the nation a week ago.
You cold?
I'm cold. It's windy, but we're talking, man.
Yeah,
I'm warming up.
You know, Clark, you knew it was going to come because I was going to bring this to you because I think, and listen, I'm not going to say I know lacrosse inside and out, but I know when problems develop in sports, and we've mentioned it, we've talked about it before. They have got to do something about this in your mom's womb recruiting because, you know, Alex Kincannon, not his fault, terrific player. But kids committing to college when they're freshmen, he's a junior now, going to go to Johns Hopkins a year and a half from now. Will it ever stop?
You know, it won't stop until the coaches realize that it's not a competitive advantage. And, you know, Quickie, my whole feeling on this has actually changed over the last year or so because I see the parity in college lacrosse. I don't fault the kids. I mean, if you have an opportunity
absolutely. It's not the kids' fault.
to go to a great school and sign up and play for a national power and get that type of education, go for it. No fault for the kids. And I think the coaches are going to realize, and this is why I really have no objection to it, right now it's not a competitive advantage. You see these Division I teams popping up for 1 or 2 years that are playing really competitive games against the giants that are recruiting these youngsters. So if it's not a competitive advantage, which I don't think it is right now, I think those can't miss kids, those 1 or 2 kids in a class that you feel like you have to go after, that you just know, no brainer, this kid's a stud. But to fill classes, I think it's foolish because, you know, you're missing out on kids who develop late. Those kids end up going to the mid-tier schools. Those mid-tier schools now can play big boy lacrosse.
So what did Hopkins see in Alex as a freshman that got them so interested in getting him to their school?
The same thing that I saw. I mean, just a great, skilled lacrosse player. I mean, he's a left-handed dodger. He's small, but he's really stocky. He can get the goal line extending. He reminds me a little bit of of Mark Cockerton from Virginia, where you know he's going top side and you know he tries to get above goal line extended, but he's still successful doing it because of his approach and his strong two-handed cradle. I mean, this kid gets a shot off with pressure on his hands as good as any kid out there. And he's a tough kid. He's a lacrosse rat, too. You know that he loves the game. I know he works hard in the offseason. He's a wonderful kid, does great in school, and he's the total package for Syosset. I just don't know if